Hi, this is Joe and welcome back to the Fab Lab. We have an interesting project this video. I just picked up the Harbor Freight Pittsburgh 8,000 pound hydraulic equipment kit. Consists of a series of rams and extensions. We've had a little accident here with a trailer I was working on. I'll show you those pictures here in a minute. We're going to use the hydraulic ram to bend a frame rail back out on a trailer. Let's start by opening this thing up. I'm going to go through the instructions off camera and then we'll show you how this thing works or not. We've opened up the box. Looks like all the hydraulic components come into a plastic molded case. They do give you some instructions. I'm going to go through those here in a minute. We'll pull all this stuff out. Let me move the camera over and show you what we got to repair here. I have a small trailer frame that I've been sanding and flap wheeling and trying to clean up. And we had a little accident. I won't go into any major details, but as you can see, the rearmost portion of the frame has been bent, and unfortunately this is a complex bend. I'll show you here. Not only did the pieces bend in this way, but this rail right here bent this way, and then it also twisted. So right down here where the leaf springs mount for the axles, that is bent, and so of course when you go to put the axle assembly back on, it's not going to fit properly. So what I'm going to do is I've tried to bend this out manually, and it's just too much. I can't do it by standing on it or anything else, and I don't really have a metal rod in the ground that I could pull on, so I had to pick up the hydraulic set here. So we're going to try first of all to bend this arm back this way, and then we're going to try to twist this back, and then we're going to pull the two bottom arms back out, and then I'll take it and I'll re-weld it. So first thing we want to do is pull the pump out, and we want to check the fluid, and we also want to purge any air out of the line here. So let's take a look at some of the components on the pump. This is your relieve the pressure valve, or tighten it when you want to apply pressure to the ram. So start out, we'll open this valve. Notice there's a little orange cap here, and this cap covers an adjuster, and this adjuster says do not adjust. So I'm assuming, and there's nothing in the manual that talks about that, so I'm assuming if you ever have to replace the seals on the pump, you would then have to adjust this. Again, there's no instructions. On the left hand side of the pump there is a little plug here, and again there's no mention in the instructions on what this does, so I'm assuming it has to do with priming the pump when you're rebuilding and replacing the seals. Okay, on the very end, on the top here, let's loosen this, let's lift the lever here. This is your fill valve right here. This is where you put your hydraulic fluid. When you pop this off, you'll notice there's a little O-ring there, and you do not want to put any Teflon tape on that. This end piece right here is referred to as a tie rod, and I'm assuming this tie rod ties into the inside cylinder. So when you're rebuilding your cylinder, you would more than likely remove this. It probably pops this cap off right here, so you can get at the cylinder and your O-rings. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, and I picked up some hydraulic jack oil from Harbor Freight, and it's a good thing I did. I was assuming that they would fill this hydraulic pump at the factory, but when I popped the fill cap off, it looks like the pump is completely empty. So if you're going to get one of these, make sure you pick up some hydraulic fluid, or you'll be making a second trip back to get some hydraulic fluid. So let's take a look at the end here. This is the end that screws into your ram, and your ram is right here, And there's a dust cap on here. So if we remove that dust cap, you notice there's a little pin right there. When you're doing filling and bleeding the pump, you'll push down on this pin, and you want to pump on your handle with the valve closed until there are no air bubbles in the stream. So that's how you properly purge and prepare the pump for operation with the ram. So let's go ahead and put that dust cap on first, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to fill the pump, and then we're going to go ahead and purge the air out of the line. So let's go ahead and do that. So first thing what we want to do is lift up the handle. We want to make sure this valve is open because we don't want to put any pressure on the line just yet. Okay, then we're going to remove the fill cap. Don't lose your O-ring and don't get this end dirty. So let's go ahead and let me pause the camera. I'm going to get a rag. I don't want to spill hydraulic fluid over everything. Let's fill the fluid in the pump now. This is a 15 fluid ounce container of fluid. I have no clue how much this pump is going to take. Hopefully it's enough. Otherwise, yet another trip to pick up some hydraulic fluid. Stay Lube is supposed to be a pretty good brand. It's anti-foam, anti-rust. Long ways to go. Let me fill that up off camera. Luckily, it took just a little bit over half of the container to fill. So now what we're going to do is we're going to purge the line until no air bubbles come out. So let's take off the dust cap. And let's get the rag over here. We're now going to tighten the valve here so that we can apply pressure to the line. And it says to take the line, let's get some room over here, and it says to put this and press down on that little valve. Okay, so we're going to press down and then we're going to pump. And that looks pretty good. Looks like the line was already filled at the factory. I'm assuming that what they did was at least do some testing of the pump before they shipped it. I would hope so. So that looks good. I didn't see any air bubbles coming out. Let's put the dust cap back on for now. And then let's release the pressure. And let's go ahead and then top that pump back off. Looks like the pump is now completely full. Let's wipe the cap. We don't want to get any grit in that pump. One of the things they recommend doing is if you're going to pump in the vertical position, do not put the pump like this. Always pump with the hose in the down position. So now that is done. So let's go ahead and attach the hose to the ram, and then we'll discuss how we attach attachments to the actual ram. First off, let's remove the dust cap from the ram, and always look inside, make sure there's no grit, make sure you got a clean O-ring in there. Even though they shipped it with a dust cap, I don't trust how they assembled this. Make sure your dust cap is clean and no grit. That's ready. Keep it on a rag so we won't get any grit on there. Let's go ahead and take the dust cap off of there, and let's wipe this with a rag. Again, we don't want any, since we pushed that down on the ground, let's make sure that's totally clean. So let's now go ahead and attach this. Make sure your valve is open. You don't want fluid spraying all over yourself. Put that in there, and let's tighten this up. And I'm assuming because there's a knurled nut here that this is going to be hand tight only and no wrench. We'll try it out. If it happens to leak, we'll tighten this up a little bit more. Take your dust caps, make sure you save them, because if when you put it back in the case, you're more than likely going to have to disassemble this. So let's go ahead and put that there. Okay, so that is that. Now, let's talk about accessories and extensions. Let me zoom the camera back a little bit. We get a better view of what's going on here. Let's take a look at how we put some of the attachments on the Ram. Some terminology here. This is the stationary side, and of course this is the side that the Ram moves. So what they recommend is you always put the side that you want to bend on, you always want to put it on the Ram side. And there's a protective cap on here, so you want to pull that protective cap off. And then you have a variety of accessories that you can put on here. So on the offset attachments, these two always work together. So you would screw this on, threads, remove this protective cap, and then you would then put on the other offset on there, and now you could work in a restricted area. There is a snap ring on here to make things make the attachments lock in place. Let's take this off now. Again, the two offsets always have to work together. You can't use an offset and a non-offset together. So these two pieces are used together. Let's go ahead and put the safety cap back on. Okay, so you always want to be pressing against what you're bending on the Ram side, and your attachments then for straight will pop right in like this. And then you have a larger base that goes on the stationary end. And in order to use the stationary end, they give you an adapter here. This pushes in to the O-ring, and then you can put your base on that end, and that one will go in like this. And also, I won't show you the long extensions because would have to pull way back on the camera. But if you want to add extensions, and again, you can join these extensions together to get a long reach by simply attaching the male and female ends together. So you have, and there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 extensions. So you can get, if you put them all together, you can get quite a long reach. So that's how you would do those. Some of the other ends, if you want to put a wedge end, these are for, again, getting into tight corners or areas, or if you're working on, let's say, like a round pipe, you could then work with the wedge ends. For popping dents out of doors, they have a little rubber, I guess, I don't know what you want to call this, a rubber bumper. This can go on here, and then this could be used for popping out dents in doors and things like that. In the upcoming video, we're going to show how to use the Harbor Freight hydraulic equipment kit.